Simon Rosenberg is the founder of New Democrat Network and the New Policy Institute, a liberal think tank and advocacy group based in Washington, D.C. He's a veteran of presidential campaigns from Clinton to Biden. And right now, he's known to pundits as the guy who got the midterms right. He is a frequent commentator in the national media, appearing regularly in major papers, websites, journals, and on cable and network TV. He's recently joined Future Majority and has launched a new Substack that he calls the Hopium Chronicles. Simon, thank you so much for joining us today.
Jen, I go wherever you ask. It's great to be here today.
And so I want to start with the midterms question, because your voice in the lead up to the midterms was really critical. And I want to say the role that you played was important to me personally, because at Way to Win, we also were putting out the call that there was a path to win in the midterms, despite all the doom and gloom we were facing constantly. And often I felt like a voice in the wilderness. And so you being out there doing all of that work was really, really helpful. And it made me feel like it was possible as well in those dark times. So I wanted to ask you, now that we've had a few months to reflect, what are some of the biggest lessons you're taking forward from that experience, where you really had to push back really hard on the narrative of the election itself, and the assertion that it was absolutely in the bag for the Republicans, there would be a red wave? And just what are you holding that we should remember for the next time so that that doesn't happen again?
I think the big mistake that many of the commentators in Washington made was they normalized the extremism of MAGA, and that somehow, while voters were looking at this with horror, and the anti-MAGA majority, and I know you use that term now as well, we just had two elections in a row where MAGA was on the ballot, and Democrats did really well in both elections. And once the Republicans chose to embrace MAGA after January 6th, they were taking an enormous political risk, because there really was an anti-MAGA majority, and it meant, and the core of my analysis, which goes all the way back to October of 2021, was that, by them running towards a politics which had just been rejected by the country twice in overwhelming numbers, they were probably going to limit their gains, and it was going to make it a close competitive election that Democrats have a shot. And so I think what we've seen is that MAGA and fear of MAGA has driven the last three elections. It's been the most powerful force in the last three. And now that DeSantis and Trump are trying to out-MAGA each other every day, and Trump is DeSantis is even in some ways more MAGA than Trump, it's almost inevitable they're going to elect another MAGA candidate. And I think that's a big problem for them. And it's why I'm recommending that we not only try to win in 2024, but we try to grow our vote significantly, get to 55 or strive to 55, which you coined, which I may steal, and crush them in the election, not just beat them, but crush them in a way that will hopefully end the dark grip of MAGA over the Republican Party. I mean, I think that beating them by a lot is a way of liberating our democracy from the threat that we're under. So, I think that my big takeaway is that people in Washington, because of the he said, she said, because of Democrat, Republican, of left and right, and all these kind of symmetrical constructs, fell back into a place where they stopped seeing what was really happening by this normalization, which is that, MAGA remains an ugly, dark force, if voters know it, particularly in the battleground. And now the challenge for Republicans is there's now been three elections where we've litigated MAGA in the battleground. All three have gone bad for them. And it means that their next candidate, if they even have a tint of MAGA, is going to have problems. And their two leading candidates have way more than a tint of MAGA.
It's almost like they're not learning from their what they're doing.
That's what happens when extremists take over your politics, right? I mean, it's literally the definition to some degree of extremism, is that they are not responding to external events. They're not being driven, by external events. Trump, in an interview with Sean Hannity, doubled down on his argument that voting by mail is improper and a way that Democrats cheat. It's, as every Republican in the country thinks that Trump's persuading people to vote on election day and not vote early and not use mail was a devastating tactical error by them.
Right.
And he's continuing it. So, I think the simple explanation is that they're no longer operating as a party out and trying to get outside their bubble, right? They're living in the bubble, in the right-wing bubble, the right-wing media bubble, the right-wing political bubble, and they can't get out. And it's why we I think, have to really go on offense, think big, try to expand our coalition, and crush them in 2024.
I want to talk about that a little bit. And just not for nothing, I don't have the reach that you do, but I was also saying there wasn't going to be a red wave. No one was listening to me. But I came at that from a different place because I'm an organizer, and I always look at volunteer enthusiasm as a marker. Yeah. And you see it. Obviously, Virginia is always a great bellwether for the kind of volunteer enthusiasm we have. And I was despondent, like many other people, until the repeal of Roe, when I saw volunteers really stepping up to engage again. And when I see that, I know that when people show up and help out on campaigns, that's when we win. So having said that, and looking forward to the next election, you talk about some different groups that we really need to focus on to make sure that we build and widen that coalition. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, and this is a sketch, right? I don't know the answer. It's like man on the moon. We just have to get there. I'm not sure exactly how we get there. I have some ideas, but a lot of testing needs to go into this, a lot of collaboration and discussion. And it starts with the ambition itself, right? It's like you can't score unless you shoot. You can't win a game unless you have a plan to win. And so what I'm doing is I'm challenging everybody to also start getting out of our defensive crouch that we've been in over the last couple of years and think differently about what's possible, because the Democratic Party today is strong. Joe Biden is a good president. The country is better off. Our grassroots is stronger than it's ever been. A lot is going right for us. And we got down on ourselves and lost confidence in ourselves last cycle. And we can't do that again. The country, if we lose because we've lost confidence in ourselves, our democracy could go away. We don't have the luxury of this kind of self-reflection and the frustration that we had with each other last cycle. And so I think I'm laying out 4 groups, but there may be 5 more. I don't know. And I'm open to, I've already had today on my call the Democrats abroad. There's 6.5 million Democrats abroad, only about 600,000 vote. That's a lot of potential votes for us. It's another new area to be focusing on. But the 4 that I lay out is under 45-year-old voters, Hispanics, never MAGA, never Trumper, and people affected by the politics of abortion. And I say people because I think it's both men and women. I don't know that it's just women. And I think there's obviously enormous overlap in those 4 groups. But I think each of them deserve their own strategy and their own, because they're communities, there's ways. And so I think that the biggest opportunity is just with young people. I mean, if we can get turnout up significantly among under 45s, I mean, the people who vote the most for us, the people who are most Democratic vote the least. Well, we should change that. Yeah. I mean, we have the power to do it. And Jen knows this. I mean, we're now living in, a lot of Democratic politics was built around strategies coming from a time of scarcity. We're now living in a time of abundance as Democrats. We have unbelievable amounts of money. And we have to use that money to rethink the way that we do our business. I think we should spend $100 million in the next 6 to 9 months registering people under 45 years old. And I think the money's there. I think we need to put a campaign together. And it's one of the highest priorities for us, I think, in this election. And so I don't exactly know how it's going to work, but let me just be clear to your listeners. We did this once before. When I met Jen, almost 20 years ago, I was running around with a PowerPoint about millennials and Hispanics saying that, there's a new electorate emerging. And if we lean into it, we can expand our vote. And from 1992 to 2004, we averaged 47% in those 4 elections. When we started leaning into this new coalition in 06 and 08, we've now averaged 51% in these 4 elections. We grew by 4 percentage points. So we've already done this. Let's do it again and get up to 55.
because you mentioned 45 and under, which is obviously really important. You look at Gen Z and the record registration that they had in the midterms, which was very meaningful. Again, working as an organizer, we know that if you don't get someone to register the first opportunity that they have to register, it's incredibly difficult to keep them or to get them engaged until they're 30. There's this block of 18 to 20 somethings that it's just really hard to get them engaged. But if you do register them the first opportunity that they have, they become habitual voters. It becomes part of their identity.
Faster, you accelerate the process of them becoming a habitual voter. Right?
Yeah. So I guess I just.
So I'm not willing to accept that reality. We have to change that reality. You may be right. We're a lot of defeatism in the Democratic Party about young people. I don't think we try hard enough, oftentimes. And what I'm doing is I'm saying, look, the upside of launching a massive campaign like this is so immense that we would be foolish not to do it. And yeah, there's going to be problems. Like, it's not going to be perfect, right? But like, we got to try. And I think we can do it. And I think it requires there to be some kind of, I'd love to see Olivia Rodrigo or a whole series of people, become co-chairs of this campaign. And, people who are socially conscious and they actually go out and knock on doors themselves and, do things. I mean, we could build something so amazing here. And in an off year, when it's not in the crowded environment, think about how much press this could get and TikToking and all the things that, the way that everyone communicates. My daughter's going to be a first-time voter soon. She's 17. And we can make this really exciting for people and create a national, like, hey, you want to be a good young person? You got to go vote, and you got to whoever you vote for. And I think this is something we're pushing against an open door, I think. But we need to do it. And let's see. I mean, I've already had, since I began this just 2 weeks ago or so, I've already had a lot of people reach out to me. And I'm pretty confident there's going to be a lot of money thrown at this. I just think it has to be thrown at it now and not next year. I think this has got to be an off-year activity and not an even year activity.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, I agree 100%. The earlier we get started on all of this was one of the biggest lessons I had from the midterms as well.
Yeah.
So, Simon, you and I have known each other a long time, as you said, but for those listeners who don't know you as well, could you just share a little bit about how you first kind of got your start in American politics? And now that you've been at it for so long, what are you actually most excited about as you go forward?
Yeah, I'm definitely part of the problem and not part of the solution anymore. I've been here for so long.
I don't think that's right.
Listen, I got my start. I was not very political in college or high school. I mean, I ran for vice president of my school, but I was not I didn't think I was going to go into politics. It was not something I ever thought about. And I was lucky to get a job right out of college at ABC News and went to New York and worked at ABC, which was an amazing experience as a young person. And my boss had been a big Democrat who had moved into the media business. He had worked for Ted Kennedy and for Bobby Kennedy. And he, 2 years into my time there, I was sort of in a junction in my career, and he said, "You should go work on a presidential campaign." And I said, "What do you mean? You're telling me to get out of here? I'm enjoying working here at ABC." And he said, "Listen, when you're 60 years old and you look back at your life, are you going to be happy about spending another year and a half as a producer, or do you want the experience of going out and working on a presidential campaign?" So I was like, okay, that sounds pretty good to me. And I went to go work for Mike Dukakis. It was a long time ago. I was a field organizer for over a year, sleeping on floors and eating bugs, what field organizers used to do in the old days.
A lot of protein in those bugs.
Yeah, a lot of protein. What are the four campaign food groups? It's like pizza, coffee, McDonald's. I mean, it's
donuts.
But
yeah.
I really learned a lot about the country and got out of my Northeastern bubble that I was in, and lived in Iowa and Michigan and Toledo, Ohio. I mean, I traveled all over the country, and it was an incredible experience. It changed me. I mean, it's why I'm here probably all these years later, is that I enjoyed working with people to try to make things better on a very basic level. It just felt good. I never thought I would do it in a million years. Went back into the TV news business, and then I got a call at the end of 1991 from a bunch of my friends who are the people I liked from the campaign in '88, who said, "We're going to work for this guy, Bill Clinton. You should come."
Mm-hmm.
And I ended up being the communications director in New Hampshire. And all these years later, I got a wife and a mortgage and kids, and I'm in Washington. So, in terms of what I'm most excited about, I think it's a really hard question, but I think off the top of my head, I'm most excited about the next generation of Democrats that are coming up. I think that if you look at Hakeem Jeffries and Gretchen Whitmer and Jared Polis and Gavin Newsom and just Kamala, you make your list.
Mm-hmm.
It's pretty amazing, actually, when you add
Mm-hmm.
it all up. Abby Spanberger and Alyssa Slotkin. I mean, I've gotten to know a lot of the folks who got recently elected in the House and Senate here in DC. And I think this is just an amazing, remarkable group of people. And whenever Joe Biden decides to fade from the scene, and Chuck Schumer and Bernie and the older ones who are, the generational wheel is turning now, and we should look forward to that generational wheel turning, not be scared about it. I think we're in good hands.
That's really exciting. I agree. So every week we give our listeners a to-do list, because this is a show about getting people into action. And you've talked about the importance of us getting louder as a Democratic family. We certainly understand and appreciate the importance of progressive media and the role that we play here. What does getting louder look like for activists? Is there a narrative that's top of mind right now that our listeners should be paying attention to and amplifying?
Well, I think we have one big political job to do, message narrative this year, which is that we have to get into positive territory on the economy. It's the thing, if we could do two big things this year: register lots of young people, get into positive territory in the economy, we'll enter into 2024 in pretty good shape. We're not going to have the election that we want to have if we're in negative territory in the economy versus the Republicans. And so a lot of the work that I do, the sort of the message narrative, agenda work I do, is around helping Democrats understand how to engage in the economic conversation. The bread and butter of my organization for almost 3 decades was around economic policy and global and domestic economic policy, and it's stuff I know pretty well. I've been in the fight here for 30 years, and I think we've underperformed dramatically as a party on basic economic issues, and we could debate why that is, but the basic stat I always use, and Jen knows this, is that since 1989 and a new age of globalization began, there have been 48 million jobs created in America. 46 million of those have been created under Democratic presidents, basically all of them. And we've had 3 very successful Democratic presidents in a row who created growth and lower deficits and American progress. And Republicans have had 3 consecutive presidents deliver recession, higher deficits, and American decline. We shouldn't be losing the economic fight to these guys. And I think we have to really be super intentional. So in terms of getting loud, the most important thing we can all collectively get loud on is on economic matters this next year. And to take some of the stats I've given, take your own stats. I think I'm very ecumenical about how people argue and, bug their friends with all the good news about the Democrats. But the basic premise of Get Loud is there has to be organizations and institutions, like Midas Touch and all stuff you're doing here. But, the War Room in 1992, which I was part of, the concept of it was like 20 of us, Carville, Stephanopoulos, blah, 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 fighting it out. But the War Room now has to be 2, 3, 4 million people who get up every day, wired together, amplifying positive messages about Democrats. And, through their networks, however they move stuff through networks, right? Could be TikTok, could be just emails to friends, and to become intentional about spreading the good news and feeling like we have agency. And we do have agency together, particularly if it's 2 or 3 million of us every day. We can match Fox News if we do that. And I think in the short term, to me, to close the gap with the Republicans who are louder than we are, the most effective way we can do that is if millions of Americans get up every day feeling they're part of the info war and play a part in it in whatever way they're comfortable, right? I get a lot of questions like, well, I write postcards and that's part of it. That's about being loud, right? But I mean more than just campaigns. I think the difference between us and them is that almost all of our activity is campaign related. They have this whole other layer of politics, right? Which is these 24/7, 365 propaganda machines that we have no answer to. And we can't, it's why things are closer than they need to be. It's why they're still surviving despite being bananas, right? And, banana Republicans. And so I think to me, we have to match to some degree this noise machine they've built. And in the short term, I think the best way to get there is through people, being intentional and doing it in whatever way is comfortable to them, right? I do it in my work every day. I'm super loud, aggressive, but I'm just a guy, right? Like I'm just a guy doing it. I got my Substack. I'm here with you, and so there's a lot more we can do. I'm trying to create a permission structure for the proud patriots and who love their country, who get up every day doing the work that you're talking about, Steve, to also do this work too, to view it not just as a campaign, but they can, if they just do a little bit every day, and there's 2 million of us doing a little bit, we're going to be really, really loud. And I think that's why I'm optimistic that my call to arms here, right, is as a veteran of the war room, I think these are achievable things. And because we're starting from zero, basically. The National Party, and we could debate this for a long time, has not gone out to fellow Democrats and said, we want you to get loud. They say, we want you to give me money and let us be loud. And I don't think our family, I think people want to be partners in the fight, not donors to the cause. And we have to create a different relationship with our grassroots, I think, if we really want to get to where we all want to go.
I love that. So thank you, Simon. You mentioned your new Substack, which is called the Hopium Chronicles, which is very fitting for our show where we always talk about reasons for hope. So we'll encourage everyone to sign up for that. We can even put the link, I think, in our show notes and give that to folks. But just tell us what's giving you hope right now. It can just be today. What's giving you hope?
What's giving me hope is that they're so terrible. I mean, truly, DeSantis is just what a piece of, I'm not going to say the rest of it, right? He made such a miscalculation and pushed himself so far to the right. I mean, he could have run nationally on a 15-week abortion ban. He can't run on a 6-week abortion ban. He can't run. The 6-week abortion ban's at 22% in Florida, right? Forget about in Michigan and Pennsylvania. And so what gives me hope is that I think they're blowing it really bad. And, what we need to do is to recognize that and to run up the score. Like that's part of what I'm talking about. Like we have to not give them power they don't have. We have to stop believing that they're the Wizard of Oz. It's just the old guy behind the curtain, like literally Donald Trump, the old guy behind the curtain, right?
Yeah.
And
grifting.
And the orange guy, the painted man. And we need to go into this election feeling confident, as if we're going to grow and expand, and not as some people in our party talk about repositioning us, and which I think is timid and cowardly as opposed to bold and ambitious. Joe Biden went really big legislatively in 21 and 22.
Yeah.
We need to go politically. We need to go big politically now. And it's just time. They're making it easy for us. They're the ugliest party in American history. These guys are the biggest extremists that we've ever seen and we may ever seen in our lifetime. We can't let them put lipstick on the pig on the other end. We got to define them now and hold them accountable for how crazy they've gone and the danger they've put our country in. And in a weird, funny way, I think what's happening in Israel and the protests we're seeing successfully pushing back on Bibi, who is, fellow MAGA, part of greater MAGA,
right,
is an inspirational thing for all of us, right? We're in it together. I mean, this is a global fight. And we have brothers and sisters fighting along with us all around the world who are counting on us to win, by the way. Because if we lose here, all is lost virtually everywhere. And I have had this feeling watching the Israeli protests of there's something very affirming about it to me. And in terms of just making me feel less lonely in the struggle that we're in here every day. And if I can just end with one last thing, and I've gone on a long time today. I think the whole thing about hope is hope has to have a plan, right? For hope to be, let me try to reflect on this for a second, because I've never actually said what I'm about to say. The reason I've embraced the concept of hopium is that, to me, what hopium is willing something to be that may not have been before. It's hopium with power. We willed that election to be what we needed it to be in 2022. It didn't happen, right? We, through the power of hope and our organizers, and our money, and our candidates, we defied history. We did something together. We changed the future. Hopium is hope with power behind it, right? It's the ability to will something to be that may not have been otherwise. Well, that work is not done. And, we have to learn in our family how to have more agency and more confidence in ourselves, that we're on the right side of history, that we're up against an unbelievably dark force, and that we have to summon the energy from that battle to imagine even more powerful outcomes. I think the way we won this election gave us a lot of, we got mojo, right? But that mojo only matters if we use it to go, through the force of our will and the force of our work and the force of our ambition and the force of our unwilling to put up with their horse shit, that we are going to change history again. We're going to destroy MAGA, and we're going to do something that's going to stun the world. We just did it. We have to do it again. And I am confident that that we have the tools and the people and the folks all around, Steve, what you were saying, the millions of people get up, do the work. We've never had a grassroots uprising. We're having our own uprising in this country, but it's happening through our elections. It's not happening through protests. It's happened at 3 consecutive elections. The equivalent of our marches are the people writing postcards and donating $10 and, going door to door and texting at 3 a.m. and all the stuff that everybody's doing. That's our ongoing protest against MAGA. I'm confident that this next election, we have the capacity and the opportunity to really break them in a way that is what we need to do for the future of our country.
Wow, that really resonates with me. It reminds me of a phrase, faith is very important, but faith without works is dead. And that's what we need. We need the hope, we need the faith, and we need to work at it and make it a reality. So, Simon, thank you. I wish we could keep going on, and I hope you'll come back and join us another time. But thanks so much for being here.
No, it's my pleasure. I love you guys. And just, Jen, thanks for all your amazing work the last couple of years. It's been really high level and impactful, and, just grateful for what you do.
Thank you. Thanks, Simon. Appreciate you. Very inspiring.
Okay. See you, everybody.
Thank you so much for joining us today. This is How We Win. We win when we all get involved.
And we want to hear from you. Send us an email at hello@howwewinpod.com or tweet to us at howwewinpod, at bluesboysteve, and at Jen Ancona.
Please make sure you subscribe, rate, and leave us a review on Apple or wherever else you get your pods. Share our show with your friends and family as well.
There's always more work to do, so we'll be back next Wednesday.